Hi, and welcome to Every Horror Movie on Netflix, the show where we watch and talk about every horror movie on Netflix from A to Z. Very excited to be back. It's just me, Chris, here with just Patrick.
Just forming a cult today.
And Steven.
It's just Steven.
We're our little, we're the cult, the Amon cult. And why is that relevant this week?
We watched Cult of Chucky.
It's Chrissy, Patty, and Stevie this week.
Was that your Chucky impression?
No, that's just like what our names would be if we were good guy dolls.
Good guy dolls. Yeah, so we got, this is kind of an exciting week if you're into the Child's Play thing.
Well,
that's a sentence you can interpret a few different ways.
It's exciting or potentially mildly infuriating.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, lots of different directions. But, I mean, the major event is the Child's Play reboot is coming out this weekend.
Yeah, good timing.
Film reboot. The TV reboot has been confirmed by Brad Dourif, and that's coming sometime next year, probably.
Yes.
Well, this is a wild fucking thing that I just learned about because of watching this movie. Like, I mean, I was kind of stunned in the first place that there are even as many Chucky movies as there are in the first place. I was shocked to learn there had been a new Chucky movie made as recently as 2017, I think, when this one came out. Yep. And now we've got a new one coming out this year, which is completely unrelated. It's a reboot, has nothing to do with the original creator. The original creator hates the fact that it's coming out. Don Mancini hates the fact that it's coming out, has distanced himself from it, and is separately creating a TV series, kind of continuing his own Chucky continuity, which just is still blowing my mind all kinds of ways.
It's crazy, but I like it. The two can exist in the same.
Oh, I mean, God bless.
I'm trying to think.
It's very strange.
I mean, this would be like, we talk, horror fans especially, I feel like, well, maybe not horror fans, anime fans, video game fans, fan fiction is a huge thing. And like, what if you could make your own Jason movie or your own Halloween movie? People do this, but they don't see a wide release because of rights issues. Like, this might be kind of opening the door to intellectual property being a little bit more malleable legally than it has in the past.
I don't know what the legal situation is or how this situation happened, but yeah, it is fascinating. But, hey, if someone wants to do the same thing for the X-Files and reboot it, and Chris Carter wants to make his own series to continue the original continuity, God. I can tell you which one I'm going to be more interested in.
Yeah, let's not give Chris Carter any further license to defile his own legacy.
Oh, man. But yeah, Cult of Chucky is the 7th film in the original, and presumably the final film, I guess, right?
Who knows?
We'll see. Maybe there'll be a TV movie.
I mean, Don Mancini, God bless Don Mancini, by the way. I first encountered him through a very lengthy interview on Shockwaves a year or two ago, and didn't realize that, one, he's a queer icon of cinema. And I think that is kind of, you can kind of tell in some of his films. I mean, he cast John Waters in a role in one of the Chucky movies.
There was a conspicuous gay character in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, fantastic commitment to his creation. He's been as I said to Patrick earlier, the custodian of the Chucky franchise since the beginning. I can't think of another franchise that's lasted this long, especially horror, where the same guy has been responsible for the script for every movie.
Mustafa Akkad.
Mustafa.
Okay. Yeah, but I doubt he had much creative input in those films. He said
Michael Myers will never die.
Oh, okay.
Which gave us Halloween Resurrection.
All right, so we've got Mustafa Akkad and Don Mancini. I think Don Mancini is probably a little more actively involved. Well, definitely more actively involved in the films because he's directed 3 of them. He's written all but 1. I think Patrick said he had a story by credit on the first film.
So I actually take that back. He co-wrote the first one.
Okay.
I thought he is credited for story, but he also co-wrote it.
Well, he was very young. I'm not sure how old he was, but I mean, he's not that old now. So I'm guessing he created the character, and he wrote the film, and then, you know, Hollywood probably brought in somebody a little more experienced to polish it up because they didn't trust a fucking 20-something to write a big budget horror film.
So I'll probably be exiled from the horror community upon saying this, but I'm not really keen, meaning I'm not just informed and up on Chucky that much. I think I saw bits and pieces of the original film. I think I've seen the ending of Child's Play 2 several times on TV. Other than that, I know Chucky because he's an icon, but I haven't really seen the movies.
No, I'm fairly ignorant too, and I mean, my horror knowledge is very bizarre. You know, as has been discussed previously, I've seen every Freddy, Jason, and Michael Myers movie at this point, and I have many other blind spots. But yeah, Child's Play, I think I've seen like half of the first one, and that's about it prior to seeing Cult of Chucky. So this is kind of an unusual one too, because I don't know if we've done that many movies before where we've just jumped right the fuck into the middle of a franchise that we know
the end of the franchise
about.
For now.
Yeah, and I was hesitant to do so. I mean, we don't have a choice. It's the format of our show. But I was upset a little bit because I was thinking about some of the franchises I love, such as Saw. And, like, I think Saw 6 is great, but would I ever recommend someone watch it without watching every other Saw? Fuck no. So I was like, am I going to jump into this and have no context for anything and not be able to give it its appreciation, the appreciation that it deserves? I don't think I was really confused. I think this movie really gives you everything you need to know pretty efficiently.
What?
Totally disagree.
I am shocked and stunned by this opinion. Please explain your experience, because I was absolutely baffled by so much of this movie. I'm literally stunned. I'm speechless. I'm still speaking, so I'm not actually speechless, but I didn't feel like I was that confused. I know Chucky is a killer doll. I mean, your main point of confusion was that there are multiple Chuckies in this movie. That was not my main point of confusion.
No, it's like, who the fuck are all these characters from previous films? And, like, why is Jennifer Tilly playing herself?
She wasn't playing herself. That was just a fan service joke.
Nope, she is playing herself.
No,
she is herself in these movies.
Okay, Patrick can explain.
Well, I only know who Jennifer Tilly is because of the Chucky franchise. So,
the same.
So, that's not a leap for me. I don't feel confused by that. I'm like, that's a creative choice. Fucking fine.
But what a fucking weird creative choice if it didn't have some...
I'm aware that she's in these movies. All the other characters who seem to be important, I mean, again, who knows? Maybe everyone in this asylum had a role in one of the previous movies or something. I don't know. Maybe
most of the characters do. That's what was like. I'm like, I feel like I'm given nothing to work with here.
I just want to ask you a few pop quiz questions, because these were the questions that just fucked with me, and I was puzzled through the whole movie. Who is the man that we see at the very beginning of the movie?
That is Andy, the child from Child's Play.
Correct, but I did not know that, and my mind was boggled when I looked up on Wikipedia, and I was like, and I'll give them credit for this. I was like, wow, that's kind of cool that they're actually bringing back the literal same actor who played a child in Child's Play as an adult in the later films.
So because you were texting us about that, I guess I was predisposed to having that knowledge.
Oh, here we go.
But I thought that even without that knowledge, I would have picked it up, because I thought the first 5 minutes of this movie were genius, by the way. We start on a date. There's a guy we've never seen before. I didn't know him from Adam.
Oh, I love this scene.
And he's there. He's having like a weird bad date with a woman. He's trying to articulate.
They're talking about the Second Amendment.
His position on the Second Amendment. And then she's like, why? Who do you need to shoot? And then he's like, oh, did you Google me? And then he's like, oh, and then he starts piecing together essentially the whole history of the Child's Play franchise. And I'm like, oh, this is the kid. He talks about his babysitter getting killed by Chucky. So you tell me. No, I totally understood that. If this guy wasn't the original kid, and then we find out his name is Andy, which I remember is the name of the kid from the first movie, we would have known by the end of the first 5 minutes who that guy is.
I did not. I was shocked when I looked that up and found that out.
Okay, well.
Did you look that up after you saw the film?
I looked it up while I was watching the film. I was on Wikipedia for a lot of this movie, trying to figure out what the fuck was going on.
Maybe that's our problem. You have a character, I don't know if you know Andy is the name of the kid from the first Child's Play.
I don't.
We have a character who's talking about his babysitter getting killed by Chucky, so... And he's like a 30-year-old,
right? Which that wasn't a problem for me because I've seen the first Child's Play a couple of times.
But that character could
that.
have just come out of nowhere. He could have been introduced in this movie.
Yes,
I mean,
but
it's true.
Yeah, but
the context.
what's Occam's razor tell you though?
Okay, well, let me continue.
If there's a guy,
let me continue with my questions.
If there's a 40-year-old guy alluding to Chucky killing his babysitter and everyone else in the neighborhood, and there's a flashback of a woman falling out a window in 1988 because the car looks like it's like a 1988 car. Is it just some random newly introduced character we've never seen before? Fucking maybe.
Could be. I mean, I just finished watching the Friday the 13th movie in which Tommy Jarvis is a child, and then later is fucking Corey Feldman, and then later is a totally different actor. So there you have it.
The actor didn't tell me. It didn't inform my perception. I don't know who the actor is.
Okay. On to my next question.
Look, don't be mad. I mean, I just
not mad.
appreciate it. It wasn't a problem for me.
I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
I think this movie
in Cult of Chucky, not you.
I think it's clear this movie at least made an effort to give you information on who he is. I'm sure this movie is.
I didn't feel like it did.
We agree this movie's not targeted at people who have never seen a Child's Play movie before, but maybe if you saw them when they first came out and you've kind of been following along, I think this movie deliberately tries to give you enough information that the casual fan can understand what's going on.
I strongly disagree with that, but I respect your opinion. Question 2, why did he have Chucky's head in a fucking safe or whatever?
I have no idea, and I'm fascinated to understand why, but I didn't need to. I assume, because you see that he shot Chucky via flashback.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, well, obviously in one of the 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 movies I didn't see, this character blows Chucky's head off.
No, the character never returns. He was in the first movie and the last movie, and that's it. So...
Oh, I think, isn't he in the one before this?
I was confused too, and I'm like, what does the original Chucky, have to do with all the other Chuckies that we see later in the movie?
Right. Another question, why is the inside of Chucky's head like flesh and brains and shit? Actually, that's not... Whatever. You can't expect them to explain that, I guess.
We see a Chucky doll get curb stomped later in the movie, and I was like, all right, fine. The doll has flesh and blood inside of it.
Okay,
whatever. I'll accept that.
I'm sorry, Chris, but I'm just trying to get a perspective here. I have 3 more questions for you.
Okay.
One, what's her name in the wheelchair?
Her name is...
Nadia? Something like that?
Oh, I haven't.
Nika. Who is she?
Don't know. Apparently, she's someone who was traumatized by Chucky and had her whole family killed by Chucky in one of the previous movies. Or maybe she's a new character. I don't know. All I need to know about her is that she's got beef with Chucky, a history with Chucky, and it's very clear that she's being framed for Chucky's crimes, much like... well, I guess we haven't... That's not exactly what happens in the Halloween movies, but I got major Halloween series vibes.
Oh, I got major Halloween 2 vibes in this movie.
Yeah.
Anyway... But that was enough for me too, but it still left me feeling like, there's probably more significance I'm not aware of.
Yeah, this movie certainly makes me curious about what happened in the other movies, and I actually am interested in watching those movies after seeing this movie, but I was not confused. I didn't feel like I was missing vital information. I was like, I know I need to know. I got the archetype. That's cool.
Okay, number 2 of my 3 remaining questions. Who's Alice?
Alice is apparently her... I don't know what...
No, but I'm asking you this in context. It sounds like you did research later, which I did too.
No.
I'm still... you knew this in the context of the movie.
I haven't done any research post-watching this movie.
Go ahead.
Alice clearly is a little girl that she's close to. I'm not entirely sure what the relationship is, like if they're blood relatives or not, but obviously a little girl that she was watching over whose family was killed by Chucky.
See, I got through the entire movie, I did the Wikipedia research, and I still don't know who the fuck Alice is. It's still, I'm just
Why don't you go
puzzled.
ask Alice?
It's
when I'm 10 feet tall.
I'm not faulting you for not getting it, but I think it's explicit in the text of the film.
Wow.
That Alice is a character that Nika cares about, whose family was killed by Chucky. Nika's being blamed for those deaths. And I'm like, okay, fine.
Okay, my 3rd and final question. Just what in the fuck is going on with Tiffany? And I know you don't have an answer to this question because you didn't know what was going on with Jennifer Tilly. This one, at least you had to have been confused by.
Tiffany the doll.
Yes. Anything. Just however you interpret that.
No, I have no idea. But I mean, I know I'm familiar with the concept of Bride of Chucky. I don't know what happened, but they do establish in this movie that he is the, real Charles's ex-girlfriend from before he was a doll.
Yeah.
So I assume, knowing that, then Bride of Chucky, they reunite and somehow he puts her spirit into a doll so that he can fuck the doll or whatever. I don't know.
All right. I mean,
that wasn't like vital. That wasn't vital, I thought, to the plot of this movie. She kind of shows up as like a cameo character.
Yeah, and you're supposed to be like, oh, she's here, but it's the significance of her arrival is completely
this movie
unclear.
I know that she's aligned with Chucky, and that's all I need to know to make sense of the scene.
I'm glad you had a clearer experience with this movie than I did, but I was boggled most of the time, and I feel like from here on out, that's all I have to say. I feel like I'm going to be more positive from here on out, because I didn't hate this movie. But I was very confused by it. Which has a lot to do with the fact that it is for fans and people who have been watching the whole thing, and you're probably not meant to just walk into it like a babe in the woods.
No,
you know?
But, I mean, that's sad.
But again, we're talking about it for people who are just fucking flipping through Netflix horror and assessing it on those merits.
But with franchises, I mean, if you think back to like even in like the VHS era, sometimes you would just see the latest movie in that franchise, and there was enough there for you to be invested in. But if you were a fan, there was even more, and it had deeper layers. This movie, for me, those questions and many more lingered long before I got enough answers to accept what was happening in front of me. If it did feel like, all right, it's expected that you've seen the other films, but if you stick around for another couple of minutes, you'll be able to grasp onto something about this character that will like make sense as to how they relate to the plot or the other characters. Like, you get the information you need, but it definitely feels like a fan service film, and that makes sense. It was released on VOD. It looks like it was made for TV in like
I think it looks great,
mid-2000s.
honestly.
Really?
Yeah.
I think there was
a quick thing about plots though, and franchises. I just want to be an old man for 1 minute and say, I miss that old sort of convention where you would make a painstaking attempt to recap the previous installment or the franchise up to that point at the beginning of a movie. I
hate that.
Now,
the only example I can think of that I like is Evil Dead 2, because Evil Dead 2 renders the first Evil Dead totally unnecessary if you've only started with Evil Dead 2.
I mean, it's very skippable in many of those movies, but it's nice to have there. Like, I'll bring it back to Friday the 13th again. The first few installments of that, they give you like the last fucking 3 to 5 minutes of the previous movie pretty much verbatim. Sometimes I actually appreciated it because I was like, oh yeah, what happened at the end of that one? Other times I just fast forward through it.
But I don't go to the movies to see a soap opera. And with a lot of these movies, we're talking about like lower budget things that tend to have kind of a soap opera sort of subpar quality to them.
Once you get to movie number 6, 7, 8, 9, I'm there for the soap opera.
I love soap opera franchises. I like that concept. I mean, if you're going to have like a 5 to 10 plus film franchise, why not?
Well, I guess, okay, I'm biased because I don't like anything that goes on that long. Like, I have a problem with episodic TV sometimes. Like, I'm never going to watch The American Office because I'm like, oh, the UK Office did it in 11 episodes. I don't really need any more than that.
But you won't understand.
That is a very
Jim
strange
Pam
example, but okay.
I prefer economic storytelling. Like, I feel like that show told the same story over like 17,000 seasons, and
okay, yeah. So, we don't need to go down that rabbit hole, but it's a sitcom, and it's different.
But Patrick, I think you may have been undone by Wikipedia here because you wanted a recap of what happened in the last movie. I read the flashbacks that we get from Andy and the shot of him pointing a gun, and you hear Chucky saying, "No way," and he blows the gun, and then he has Chucky's head all fucked up in a safe in his wall. For me, that filled me in on what happened in the last movie. Maybe now you're telling me that actually didn't happen in the last movie because you read so on Wikipedia, but I was like, I know everything I need to know about this.
I did not feel that, and that's what drove me to Wikipedia repeatedly, because I was just like, I am just like a child who's what's the line from fucking Lebowski? A child who's wandered in the middle of a conversation, blah, blah, blah.
Out of your element.
I was out of my element. Exactly. I felt like I was out of my element.
Did it seem like an element you wanted to be in, though? The real question.
Yeah.
Because that was lingering in my mind.
I will say that this movie makes me want to go back and watch all of them.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that makes 2 of us.
The main thing that did confuse me and frustrate me a little bit, but I had faith that I would be able to pick up from context clues what the rules were by the end of the movie, and I more or less got the drift, was how is Chucky able to enchant other Chuckies?
Yeah,
Magic.
that puzzled
Magic.
me for a long time.
That's not in my understanding of Chucky. Maybe it's been established for several movies.
No, it was new to this movie, and eventually that is revealed.
Okay.
In the context of the film, that was something that actually did make sense to me at some point. Because I was like, "Oh, is this something I just don't get?" Oh no, it's new in this movie.
Okay.
But also, like, we're kind of
And
left.
that's why it's called Cult of Chucky, because now he can suddenly
It
enchant
takes
like an
forever
army.
to get to like the title paying off. Though. That was one
Yes.
problem I had with this.
Yes.
It's like third act, and
Yeah.
something's like, oh, there's the
Yeah.
cult. Arguably, it's a cult.
Let me interject just to set up the premise of this movie, because I'm apparently I'm the only person who wasn't baffled by it. But basically, what we have is we have our hero Nika, who's played by Fiona Dourif, Brad Dourif's daughter, and looks distractingly like Brad Dourif the entire movie.
Yeah.
She apparently has some, like we were talking about, she has previous experience with Chucky, and she's being blamed for the murders that Chucky did, so she's in a mental asylum. Typical mental asylum tropes, and then various Chucky dolls are brought into the asylum that happen to be alive, and mania unfolds from there, fairly predictably.
Oh, and we got all the lunatic asylum tropes. We
Yes.
got the guy with the multiple personalities. We got the woman who thinks she's actually dead. We've got the woman who killed her baby.
Exactly. It's all kind of lazy, maybe problematic if you think about it too much, but that's
Yeah,
where
it's a poor man's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest
Yes.
for a bulk of this movie, and it's tedious.
with
as
no
fuck.
nuance or sympathy for the mentally afflicted, unlike One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Right.
But I was thinking the cult was going to be the patients, because we meet them early on and they start bonding with the doll. I'm like, oh, these people are all going to like become Chucky acolytes or something. It's going to
That'd have been great.
A cult of people.
I'd
This
be
is,
into that.
this is like the classic example of Chris writes a better movie.
Yeah, but that's a better movie.
But no, because really, do you want to see a bunch of like mental patients stabbing people with scissors in the name of Chucky, or do you want to see Chucky? We want to see Chucky. So if there's one thing I hated about this movie, it's that we don't see Chucky enough. Whenever Chucky was on screen doing his Chucky thing, I was having a great time.
I mean,
I will say, Chucky's weird. As someone who's only seen, obviously endless still visuals of Chucky and about half of the original Child's Play, I was like, yeah, this is weird. I mean, it's kind of a stupid concept, and I almost resent that I like it / am weirded out by it, but it's creepy. It's unsettling watching this doll walk around and be a little dick and give people the finger and, stab people, whatever.
The humor is it's so juvenile that I wanted more from it. And also, like, I feel like he didn't have a lot of great like quips or one-liners. A lot of them just kind of fell flat. I mean, like, there are some like, I guess if you're like 12, it's funny to see like the mutilated head of the original Chucky smoking a joint, but I didn't laugh at it.
It was juvenile, but I laughed.
Are you supposed to laugh at that? I didn't laugh.
I mean, it's supposed to be funny.
I thought it was
funny.
funny, but I thought it was a managed time. I love the first 5, 6, the whole prologue of this movie. I was like, I love this movie. If it had kept that up, I would have said this is View 100%.
Once we get to the mental asylum, again, it's just like, marginally acceptable at best portrayals of mentally ill people. It's just kind of annoying, and it's one of those movies that has that kind of constant score in the background that just sort of like to bridge the scenes that just sort of like lulled me into an almost dream state and kept me sort of bored. It starts to feel very episodic and repetitive, not enough Chucky. And when there is Chucky, there wasn't enough like suspense built to make me wonder about what the larger scheme at play was with the quote unquote cult of Chucky. It just feels like this movie's constantly kind of spinning the wheels. There are very few kills in it.
Yeah.
The kills that are there are very memorable.
Yeah.
But it just it felt just sort of kind of histrionic and repetitive on the most part for me.
I don't understand the point about there not being enough Chucky. I guess Chucky was like Hannibal Lecter or the Joker in this to me. It was like, I mean, maybe he doesn't have a lot of screen time, but there was plenty to keep me going. And I was actually invested in Nika. I was very invested in that character. I thought she gave a good performance. I enjoyed that character. I was rooting for her, which is why the ending fucking pissed me off, but we'll get to the spoiler room.
Yeah, she was great. Lots there to like. She was unfortunately the only character I really gave a fuck about because, like Steven said,
other than Chucky.
Yeah, I mean, it was really like Chucky's the star of this movie, and
oh, for sure,
and he's killing people, and we don't care. I'm like, yes, good, kill this person just because I want to see a cool effect. Like, I have no emotional investment or suspense. I'm not afraid of Chucky. I mean, I was kind of afraid of Chucky, but he was very rarely going after someone that I didn't want him to kill.
Well, absolutely. Here's what I want out of it. Like, I can't speak for Chucky fans, but as somebody
I thought you were going to say I can't speak for Chucky.
I can't speak for Chucky. Only Brad Dourif can do that, or Mark Hamill as well, I guess. But as somebody who's like has seen the first Child's Play a couple of times, was traumatized later in life, but earlier on saw parts of Child's Play 2 and 3 and was traumatized by them. And, you know, my brother had one of those, like, My Buddy dolls or whatever things and would throw it up on the top bunk. We share bunk beds. I told this to Patrick earlier. It scared me. Whatever. I'm fine with this being a franchise. Like, it's a concept that at least works in the 80s if it doesn't work now. But I want lots of Chucky, but I want something new. I want Chucky to have new reasons to kill people. But I want lots of Chucky, and I want him killing people, and I want, like, you know, him to have, like, a larger scheme, a larger plan. Do we really have that here? Like, I never really understood his motive throughout this other than to, like, expand his reach. But why does he still want to kill?
Presumably revenge, because he's targeting Nika, who he has a history with.
He has a history with her, but, like, just move on to another victim or, kill her and then move on.
You can say the same thing about Michael Myers.
It was a little puzzling to me at first why he was in this insane asylum and just killing random people. And, I mean, it eventually becomes clear he's trying to fuck with Nika because of whatever past he has with her. But for a while, I was like, why are you making all the effort to get into this asylum and just start killing randos, you know? But, I mean, I think the salient point here, which I think you made a minute ago, Chris, is Chucky is the protagonist. And it's the same thing as most of the Halloween movies and Nightmare on Elm Street and Jason and all this shit. It's made for a certain audience who fetishizes and is basically rooting for the ostensible villain.
I would argue that Nika's the protagonist in this, though. I mean, until, you know, eventually. But
until eventually, exactly.
Well, yeah, you know, Nika was good and Chucky were good, and I was interested in anything that happened when neither of them were on screen for the most part.
I feel like this is made for an audience that's like, wow, Nika's really getting the upper hand. What the fuck? When is Chucky gonna, like, you know, get his?
I think you might be onto something there.
You might be onto something. But what you were saying about the delayed onset of the Cult of Chucky, again, this seems like a movie with that big second act problem where they were like, I got the premise, I know how it starts, I know how it ends, and in the middle, we're just going to have, like, corridors of a mental asylum and the slowest...
And, like, group therapy sessions.
Oh, God.
My least favorite trope, as listeners will probably know by now.
Yeah.
Even more so than, like, a professor explaining the themes of the movie in a class.
No, because that's helpful sometimes, but the group therapy sessions are just tedious.
Yeah, and we get a lot of them, and it was just
those are usually they usually get to the point, like, quickly and briefly. The group therapy sessions where you hear, like, the terrible portrayals of the mentally ill, the insensitive impressions of people with real problems, those really get under my skin.
No. My main problem with it, if you want to see a good movie similar to this, I don't need to tell you it twice, watch Unsane. It's
hell yeah.
I still haven't watched Unsane. God damn it.
It's the same conceit, and it's a great film.
It's not the same
killer
conceit.
Doll coming after a girl in a mental asylum.
It's the same
but better.
setting.
Same setting. I could draw a couple comparisons to the plot line, but we won't need to go there.
Bring that disc next time. I'll give you back Nightcrawler, which I'm not going to watch.
Yeah, don't.
Oh...
Anyway.
I mean, you'll hate it, but I love that movie. I would tell you to watch, but you won't like it. So, yeah, I guess just give it back to
Thank you for your honesty.
But, you know, what I needed in this movie, Cult of Chucky, was our protagonist Nika to be more proactive, I think. Like, if you're going to just keep me in this asylum for so long, I need us to be working towards a goal. And we're not really working towards anything. We're just waiting on Chucky to kill the requisite number of people to where everyone has to reckon with the fact that there's actually Chucky and she's not making it up.
And there doesn't seem to be any, like, routine or logic to when Chucky shows up or, like, whether or not it's a fantasy. I mean, there's one scene where Chucky's, like, human size.
Mostly.
What'd you say?
He mostly comes at night. Mostly.
Yeah, there are some kills in this movie. Let's talk about fucking kills.
I needed something. She's trying to prove her innocence. That's Nika's problem. And every time...
Great motive, right?
And every time she mentions Chucky, someone puts her noose on tighter, because if she mentions Chucky too much, they're going to put her back in the bad mental hospital because she's too crazy. She's been broken, and she's now saying, yes, I killed all those people. I'm fucked up. But now she has to prove. And
I kind of like that she actually attempted suicide, and Chucky, instead of killing her, like, sewed her back up. And is like, not yet. I'm still going to fuck with you for a while. Touch.
But I need her to be working towards that goal in a way I can understand, making progress, seeing her situation improve or not improve in more interesting ways than just, oh, people in my wing are dying. Oh, what do? Yeah.
But when they die, it's spectacular.
Oh, yeah, it's great when they die. No problems.
I mean, at one point, Chucky, like, shatters a skylight.
Yep.
He like, drops an oxygen tank strategically on the ground.
Right.
So it flies up, shatters the skylight. The glass comes down, and I thought, like, oh, this woman is just going to have, like, glass fall over. No, the glass chops her fucking head off.
Yeah, a big shard of glass just, like, fully severs her head from her shoulders.
Yep.
It's so dramatic and so drawn out.
It was very, like, I mean...
I kind of loved it.
Don Mancini was an executive producer on a season of Hannibal. That felt like a Hannibal
yes,
kill.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
I'm not kidding you.
That's amazing.
Right.
I love Hannibal.
But that scene felt very Hannibal.
Yes. Yes. That makes so much sense. I'm totally gobsmacked by that right now.
No complaints with any of that. The effects were great. Chucky walking around was great. It's like I couldn't tell what was CGI and what was not, and I didn't care.
I was very curious about that, sort of how they accomplished the effect of Chucky walking around. I mean, I'm sure it was primarily CGI, but it still has this weird look to it where it looks like stop motion. Yeah.
Yeah, and even like the stuff with his face is like, I couldn't tell if it was CGI or if like the puppet was that sophisticated because his features are so smooth. I was impressed because, again, I do feel like
it has a weird jerkiness to it where it doesn't look quite right, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it was probably like a animatronic augmented with CGI, if I had to take a guess.
That's what I thought too, but again, it surprised me because spoiler alert to the listeners, I'm watching the movie on my iPad while we're talking about this, and like this looks like it was made for TV. Like the color grading is so like, we don't know how we want this to look in the end.
It's like stock, like you downloaded Insane Asylum, like DaVinci Resolve LUT lookup table from online, and you dropped it on your footage, and it just desaturated everything.
Yes, it was very desaturated.
Except Chucky is not desaturated. Chucky pops. The colors on his sweater and everything pop all the time, and I like that.
I think that was a definite creative choice.
And the blood pops, too.
It has a look. I'm not going to criticize it. I don't, desaturation, whatever. That technical shit is not my province, but it has a look.
Well, even the camera work as well. It looks like it was made for like modern TV, which is much more cinematic than TV of 20 years ago. But it's clearly, it was made for the VOD market.
I like the style. I didn't notice the score throughout, but the parts I did notice the score, I didn't have a problem with it. I liked the crazy picture-in-picture stuff they were doing, and there's
a lot of split screen.
There was some nice split screen. That was fun. Don Mancini trying to get his De Palma on.
So there was enough creativity in this movie that it made me very curious to go back and watch the other ones, because I want to see what they do with this universe and this style.
Yeah, and I want to see what I mean, I don't know if my opinion counts or anything, because I'm obviously just kind of like a whore for these like stupid franchises, but I was like, yep, all right, Child's Play, that's the next one.
Well, so this movie, when it was released, it coincided with a Blu-ray box set that included this film and everything else in the franchise. So it can be yours for $69.99. I don't know.
A pittance.
For 7 films.
A pittance.
There's some
less than $10 a film.
There's some, fan servicey stuff. There's also some meta stuff in here, like when the guy says he got the Chucky doll at Hot Topic.
Yeah. I was expecting him to say eBay, and he said Hot Topic, and I snort laughed.
Yeah,
I think it's the only time I laughed during this movie.
I would, that's where I would go to get a Chucky doll.
Yeah.
So, good stuff.
Another good, weird moment is when Chucky is, suckling.
Oh, yeah, whatever.
That was unsettling. The woman who killed her baby thinks that Chucky is her baby, and she's breastfeeding him. And I will give the movie credit for this. It doesn't explicitly. I was expecting to get a shot where Chucky just is suckling and just turns from her breast and just basically winks to the camera.
Yeah.
But it's more implied, and it's just oh god, Chucky's such a fucking creep. And
you hear a sucking on the soundtrack. There's a sucking sound effect that lets you know exactly
that's
what's
still
happening.
Almost subtler than I expected, and it was still just that's gross.
Again, this franchise once made a role for John Waters, which apparently Don Mancini.
Which movie is that?
Seed, I think he's in.
Oh.
I remember at the time it being advertised he was in it, but I've not seen it. But it seems appropriate.
You haven't seen it?
I haven't seen it. This movie, clearly Don Mancini, gay man, lover of trashy, campy films because he's a fan of John Waters enough to include him in the film and name him after a character from an Ed Wood movie. This movie needed more just outright camp, in my opinion. It seemed to take itself way too seriously at points.
I don't know.
I disagree about it taking itself seriously.
I think it's a camp. It's campy. I agree that it should have been more campy.
It should have been so much more over the top all the way through.
Yes.
I would endorse more camp, but I don't think it takes itself that seriously.
Yeah, this is a campy
The camp
movie.
is still at a 6.5, at moments though.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
It doesn't fully go for it, which kind of baffles me because it's you're in the 7th film of the franchise that you've spearheaded this entire time, and you've gone to greater heights before as far as camp value goes, to the point of having John fucking Waters in your movie. This felt oddly restrained at times for what it is.
For a movie in which Chucky's severed, deformed head smokes a joint.
Yeah.
In the first 5 minutes.
And even that, the way it was shot and placed in that sequence didn't feel that over the top to me. I was oh well, yeah, that's the thing that's gonna happen in this kind of movie. I should have been on the floor laughing.
I could have watched the interplay between Andy and the Chucky head.
Oh, same.
Movie.
Oh, that could have been oh
I
my
could have
god!
watched a two-hander with them.
I'm gonna reference My Dinner with Andre 2 episodes in a row, but I would have loved My Dinner with Chucky.
Yes. Yes.
That alone was fascinating. Oh my god, you live with that thing that tried to kill you in a safe, surrounded by guns. What is that relationship like? Tell me more, please.
Give me Creep 2 with Andy and Chucky's head.
He just tortures Chucky at the slightest insult.
Yeah. Well, he puts a fucking blowtorch to its already destroyed head.
Yeah.
I love it.
That was great.
Can anyone actually offer insight as to why these dolls have flesh and muscle and blood and
Don't
brain
care.
That was new to me, and I was you know what? Love it.
Because
Down
it's more
for it.
fun, probably.
Yeah.
It could be the first instance of that in the whole franchise, for all I know. And I was down. I was oh, that made me feel a level of uncomfortableness I did not expect.
Well, in 3 weeks when I've watched all 6 preceding films, I'll fill you guys in.
Okay,
Yeah,
please do.
I'm actually really eager to watch the other movies in this franchise.
I'm gonna watch them
have you guys
all.
seen those? There's some artist that does cross section, sort of medical diagrams of famous cartoon figures like Pikachu and Charizard and Godzilla.
No.
The original Rubber Suit, and they're awesome. You can get them on t-shirts and posters, and it's the character, and then the other half of it is what their bone structure would look like, what their organs would look like.
Oh god,
that's what I was thinking of with Chucky. And so I think somebody actually did Chucky at one point.
that sounds horrifying.
And that's what I was thinking of as I watched this. And I was oh, I like that. I like the thinking about what is. It's I don't know. You watch the original Chucky, and you're at least me. I'm thinking well, it's clearly not just an ordinary doll. There's a soul inside of it. Must it also have organs and bones.
Oh,
and...
well, then you're getting into what is a soul.
Oh, okay. Well, we didn't need to go there. Not for Cult of Chucky, anyway.
It was extremely rewarding to me, and actually this may be spoiler room territory, but it was extremely rewarding to me when Andy just, like, fucking emptied a gun into Chucky's fucking head.
Yeah. Well, that's a little sneak peek at what we can expect when we go down to the spoiler room. But before we do that, there's only one thing we got to do, and that's rate this damn movie, Cult of Damn Chucky.
Cult of Damn Chucky.
I'll go first. I will give Cult of Chucky a Q-it. Certainly not a masterful film, but certainly one that will entertain you, at least in places, should you choose to watch it on a dark night when you have nothing better to do. Who wants to go next?
Screw it.
Screw it.
Screw it. I mean, I admire, I don't know, my curiosity may get the best of me soon, especially if Patrick buys that dank-looking Blu-ray box set. I might watch his
I'm just going to buy all that shit from fucking PlayStation Store.
All right.
Just going to rent it.
Yeah, well, if it's not a physical movie, I'm not going to bother. No, I'm just kidding. I'm like mildly curious to go back to like 2 and 3 and in Bride and Seed and see what those are like, but I don't know. Like, this didn't really do anything for me. Like, I admire Don Mancini for following through on this creation of his and turning it into something nobody ever could have expected from the first film, but it doesn't seem like my bag. I mean, this felt like a Sci-Fi Channel made-for-TV movie with a couple of interesting scenes in it, but I got enough of Chucky in this movie alone. I can't imagine watching 7 fucking movies with this ridiculous doll in it. So,
right.
Screw it. Patrick?
I'm going to give 2 separate ratings. One for fans of the Chucky franchise who probably don't have any question in their mind about whether to watch this movie in the first place, but I think it's a definite view it if you're a Chucky fan. If you are a babe in the woods like us, cue it. It's a low cue it, because you're going to be confused as fuck unless you're Chris, who has like a preternatural ability to understand
the grammar
plot
of film.
Oh yes, right, because you understood that Thanos beat the Hulk without an Infinity Stone, except you fucking didn't.
Okay. Anyway, cue it then. 2 cue it's and a screw it. That is
it's a low cue it.
all right.
But I'll report back after I watch the preceding 6
Please do
films.
keep us posted.
All right, well, we're going down to the spoiler
Fuck
room.
both of you.
Okay. All right, on that note, we're going to go down to the spoiler room, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the ending of this film and what happens to that Cult of Chucky.
Chalky Studebaker?
I would.
Chalky.
Cult of Chucky, and why did we go through all that, and what did we end up with? We'll talk about that soon. All right, we're back down here in the spoiler room to unpack the old Cult of Chucky. So, what is the Cult of Chucky, you may be wondering? Well, the Cult of Chucky is
I'm still wondering it, and I watched the movie.
I think it's the enchanted Chucky dolls, because basically everyone and their mother has been finding reasons to bring Chucky dolls into this asylum as some type of therapy, which seems like a pretty bad idea, but I'm not going to nitpick that. I'm like, yeah, good. Bring some Chucky. Yeah, I need Chucky dolls in this movie.
Exposure therapy.
I don't really care how they get there.
But it's not even just the dolls. Like, in the end, they end up enchanting people as well.
Yeah, apparently there's a very easy... Chucky's OP in this movie. He's OP. He can just lay a spell on fucking anything with 2 legs and a hand for stabbing, as he says.
Right, he found like some voodoo ritual on the internet.
Yeah. And turn it... Well, we've all looked at voodoo rituals on the internet. They don't work that well. And
I just probably wasn't trying hard enough.
I have not tried.
And he can kind of enchant anybody and make them a little Chucky. So that's what he does. We end up with 3 Chuckies, and our hero Nika, played by Fiona Dourif, becomes Chucky, which actually, we can dislike that ending, but the silver lining on that is that it lets Fiona Dourif do a Brad Dourif impression. And that was fun because she looks just like Brad Dourif and acts just like him too.
Ugh.
Patrick didn't like any of it.
I I was rooting so hard for her character because she had been through so much bullshit all movie. And I was just, when Andy fucking pumped 6 slugs into Chucky, I was like, yeah, let's fucking go. Let's have some fucking revenge on Chucky. And I was honestly, I still had fingers crossed that somehow Nika was going to shake the curse and was going to defeat Chucky in her wheelchair. But no, there's just this like weird, like quasi-perverse, like, yeah, lesbos, that's weird and gross.
Oh, I don't think that was the intent.
Oh, you don't? You don't think there was some, like, prurient thing with her kissing Jennifer Tilly at the end?
Not that it was gross. I mean, we're talking about a gay writer-director here. I thought it was like, oh, you know, I had no problem with that.
What do you think the intent is there? Other than to titillate straight male fanboys. I think Mancini still understands his audience.
Or maybe it's...
I mean, he may be gay, but he understands his audience, which is not gay.
Or maybe it's
primarily.
Like, well, what would happen if the spirit of someone's boyfriend inhabited a human body and was reunited with his human girlfriend? Maybe they would love each other the same way they would if he were in a male body.
Yeah, and also, like, I mean, if the intent had been pure, like, prurience, they could have picked somebody I'd want to see a girl kiss more than Jennifer Tilly, and I won't say anything beyond that. Like, it was not an especially hot or erotic scene.
I think you could make an argument that it was fan service, but I don't think it was in the prurient interest.
I mean, it's for shock value, but I don't think it's, like, for sort of... for sexual pleasure in the audience. I don't know.
Well, it robs a strong female character of a redemptive arc.
Yeah.
In service of, oh, look, it's 2 ladies making out.
Well, I mean, I don't think that was the point of...
I mean, we haven't even clarified what the fuck we're talking about.
I think
she's possessed by Chucky. She goes and makes out with Jennifer Tilly.
Yeah, she escapes the asylum. She rides off in Jennifer Tilly's Christine, and
and then Tiffany the doll is in the back seat. This was another point where I was just like, I have no idea what the fuck is going on right now.
Neither.
It's the kicker to the whole movie, and I didn't know what the fuck was going on there. Like, it's sort of supposed to be Tiffany's in the back seat, and that was supposed to mean something, and I didn't know what it meant. I thought
it was just fan service. Like, oh, Tiffany's still here.
It's definitely fan service.
Yeah, who knows? You know, whatever. I don't know.
I hated this ending.
The ending. My biggest problem was, you know, again, Nika's lack of really a good arc. And I mentioned before how I wanted to see her working more proactively to clear her name. And really, what we all want to see in this movie is the main psychiatrist / warden of the place to be convinced that Chucky is real. That's what we want to see in this movie. And he gets killed pretty unceremoniously. And
his head gets stomped in.
Yeah.
Oh, that was brutal. I forgot about that. But that was a pretty gruesome kill.
As far as he's concerned, by Nika. So his last vision is Nika being a murderer. So he's vindicated in the end. Mm-hmm. And that's Chucky's long game, I guess. They turn Nika into a murderer.
And this is what I'm talking about. Chucky is the protagonist.
I mean, sure.
Well, I mean...
If you're rooting for Nika in this film, you are in for a rude surprise. If you're in it for Chucky getting his and Chucky being the guy that you're there for and the protagonist, the fun, the reason that you're there, you're going to get what you want.
We don't know what's in store for Nika, though. I mean, like, I would hesitate to even call this a film. I would call it an episode. And I'm sure there was another story planned immediately afterward, and maybe she fights Chucky out of her body or something in the next film, and that was all planned, and it just hasn't happened yet. I don't know, but I didn't expect any kind of, like, real resolution at the end of this thing. It just felt very sort of transitory in the way that I'm sure the other films do. He's been churning out one every 2 years for a few years now.
It's just a match.
It's an interesting argument for a man who argued against soap opera films.
I'm not saying I like it. I hate it. But I think that's what he's going for. He's got, like, if you look on Wikipedia, you read interviews, he's got like 20 ideas for future Chucky movies, to the point that he's making a TV series so he can play even more with the episodic nature of the Chucky saga.
Chucky in space? Can we get that one?
I wish. They gotta wait for Chucky 10 for that.
I definitely understand that
Chucky
argument.
X.
This one was particularly frustrating to me, though, because I've seen plenty of episodic franchises with that, where you have a disposable protagonist or protagonists who are just being pursued by the ostensible villain who is actually the reason that you're there, and basically you want to see that villain win and just fuck everybody up. You know, again, Halloween, Friday the 13th, whatever.
Avengers Infinity War. Did I watch that one the wrong way?
But, you know, you've got a bunch of cannon fodder there. This one was different for me because there was a lot of effort given to really making Nika a character, and Fiona Dourif gave a fine performance, and it was a character who I cared about and felt bad for, like how much she was being gaslit the entire movie. And so
God, you cared so much more than I did. This is fascinating.
Well, I know. I cared about her.
That's why it bothered me so much, because it actually put some effort into creating a character that I did care about and who I assume probably got set up in the previous movie or movies where I would have cared about her even more had I seen the preceding movies. So it was, you know, duly upsetting.
I mean, look, Chucky is in, well, with the exception of the first 3 films, which are called Child's Play, all the other films have Chucky in the title. These are Chucky's movies. That's like... These are great movies. No, these are Chucky's movies.
All my favorite movies are Chucky.
This is what people are paying to see, and Don Mancini seems to be trying to play with that convention as much as he can while still making sure, like, Chucky wins the day in the end.
Absolutely.
And that is what it is. Like, why would you expect more than that?
I mean,
we get to see his doppelgangers.
You just struck both me and Chris speechless.
Yeah, I mean, we get
You are now playing devil's advocate for the movie that you just screwed.
Look, I get your point.
You're now playing Chucky's advocate for the movie.
I also understand
Chucky's advocate.
I also understand the argument that, like, you believe the film went out of its way to set up this character as somebody that we wanted to see vindicated. That may have been their attempt. It didn't work for me. I didn't care, and I found all that tedious because I just expected that in the end, Chucky is going to survive and win. And whether or not that means she's going to live to have to confront him again, or she's just not going to make it out of this movie.
That's what
I expected to be the formula.
At least with a lot of these type of movies, you'll get that moment where you do unquestionably vanquish
the final girl. And there's no final girl in this. The final girl becomes the demon.
And you know they're coming back. You know, maybe there's a little wink at the end where, you know, the Freddy car, like, closes over them at the end of Nightmare on Elm Street. But you've gotten that moment of just fucking dominance and victory over that fucking asshole who's been chasing you all movie, and you don't get that with this movie, and it pissed me off.
You know what? The more you talk about that, the more I kind of like this movie, because I'm tired of that trope. I find that tedious and boring. Like, I don't care about the Friday the 13th movies. I hated the Halloween movies. Like, I think it's kind of fun that the villain wins in the end because it's so unexpected. I like that it does, like, totally flip that trend. Like, you think we're going to get justice for this character?
I think we're converting Steven to a view it.
No,
you're we're running a psyop on you.
It's a hard screw it, but I'm having fun, like, rethinking it, and I don't even exactly, like, I would not seek out the kind of movie that I'm now describing this to be.
Well,
but it makes it more fun for me to revisit. Okay.
You said 2 different things. You said, on one hand, that you appreciate this because it's unexpected, and then you also said that we should have expected it. Gotcha. Checkmate.
No, okay.
Say hi to Fiona. Not Dourif.
As far as it being unexpected, I expected it, but I am not somebody who likes the traditional sort of, like, horror, like, final girl narrative. So, I understood that this is Chucky's movie and Chucky wins the day, but it's fun for me to inhabit the mind of somebody who is not expecting that, and this is what this movie gives you, and it's fun to hear about how frustrated you are by that.
As a human being, my sympathies are drawn to the human who has been wrongfully accused of a crime and wants to clear her name versus the psychopathic murder doll who smokes weed through his blown out
Right, and it's very different again from those cannon fodder movies where it's just like a bunch of generic teenagers. Again, I'm thinking Friday the 13th. You have like the most thinly drawn, poorly performed characters who all just like want to fuck and are kind of assholes to each other, and you don't care about them. Who gives a shit? But this is a character who like has been wronged and is being gaslit all movie. You have a good actor giving a decent performance, and I was invested.
Yeah, I was invested in her too. So, but yeah, really though, I mean, Steve's point, it remains that these movies are about Chucky, and the end of this movie...
I mean, that was my point as well. I agree with that point. Like,
disappointing as it is, the point of the end of this movie is let's see what happens if we get 3 Chuckies at once, or 4 Chuckies at once.
Exactly.
And they're murdering everybody.
That was the elevator pitch for this movie.
Right. Yeah, 3 was better than 1 Chucky or 2. I mean, they had Seed of Chucky, which I assume was 2 Chuckies. What happens if we do go to 3 Chuckies? Fuck it. Next
that
movie
was Chucky, Tiffany, and Chucky's Cum.
Yeah, so... Okay. But I mean, it's just fun. So the curious thing for me, the other mystery I had in my head this whole movie was Andy. What's Andy's plan? Because we see Nika withering in this asylum. She needs a hero. She needs a hero bad. And then Andy learns about her plight on the internet and mails a Chucky doll that he's been keeping safe and secret
with like a fucking mullet,
with a haircut, with the hair chopped, to the asylum. And I'm like, oh, he somehow, because I haven't seen the other movies, I'm like, he somehow has a good Chucky, and we're gonna get some Chucky on Chucky action.
That would have been sick,
And I was 100% confident that's where it was going, because why would this guy, custodian of the Chucky head in the vault, send a Chucky doll to someone? It only gets her into more trouble. It just becomes another evil Chucky doll.
This is another great episode of Chris rewrites the movie.
And then it seems like, I guess he did that so that he could retrieve a gun from the belly of the Chucky doll. Because that's what he does?
Yeah.
But so, I mean, whatever. I mean, that was a fun scene when he's, like, tearing apart the doll and there's just a gun in it. But...
all the blood and guts and viscera that we wouldn't expect to be in there.
Just another disappointment, because he could have been removed from the movie and we would have lost nothing except a couple funny scenes. So, oh well. Not the movie we deserve. But this is why I'm curious to watch the other ones, because there's enough stuff that was fun in this and enough things that they at least could have done.
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm still fascinated by this franchise, and I will report back at some point about what the rest of it is like.
I want to see the little doll walk around some more and talk shit to some people.
Yeah.
Why not?
Fuck.
Well, let me know how that goes for you.
I will.
Besides every other Chucky movie...
It's going to be a fucking Mueller report on Chucky. It's going to be redacted, though. I'm going to redact the spoilers.
Fine, fair.
If I could confirm that Chucky didn't kill those people, I would do it. Well, what the hell are we watching next week, guys?
There's not a conclusive answer to that yet. We may be watching a follow-up to a film that we have watched previously for this podcast, potentially with a special guest.
Anything could happen.
Or we may just be continuing down our merry little alphabetical way.
Or we might go in a third direction altogether and watch something, relatively recent and popular.
You just never know.
That's true. We might just do whatever the fuck we want.
We're going to leave this one a mystery, dear listener. And, you can speculate on what kind of wheels are turning in our heads. But
just sit and stew on it for the next 2 weeks.
Hopefully we bring you a special little treat next time.
But we might not. Things are happening. Uncertain time.
Not unlike the end of Cult of Chucky. You may be rewarded, or you may just have your hopes dashed.
Yeah.
We'll see. You'll have to find out by tuning into the next episode of every horror movie on Netflix.
Does anyone care? Should we have mentioned? I mean, it was a spoiler, and we probably should mention that our hero Nika escapes, but Andy is locked away in the asylum in her stead. So
I'm so fucking done with thinking about this movie.
Andy? No,
Okay.
yes, let's
right.
consign that to the fucking